Okay, well, I'd like to thank everyone for coming today to the Strive Loss Prevention. Today we have Master Officer Alan McDowell, and Alan was born and raised in Richmond, Virginia, where he attended J. Sergeant Reynolds Community College, received his associate's degree in criminal justice. Alan then continued his education at Virginia Commonwealth University. He has been with the James City County Police Department since April of 1991. Long time, Alan. And is currently assigned to the Community Services Unit as Crime Prevention Officer. During his career, Alan has served as a patrol officer, school resource officer, firearm instructor, defensive tactics instructor, baton instructor, driving instructor, arsenal, and impact munitions instructor. That's interesting. S.W.A.T instructor, CPR, AED instructor, Bloodborne Pathogens instructor, RAD instructor, RAD kids instructor, and great instructor. You're a great instructor.
Try.
That's everything. Alan continues to use his expertise to educate the public, law enforcement, military, federal, and other government agencies. Alan has also received his certification through the Commonwealth of Virginia as a crime prevention specialist and is currently working towards National Crime Prevention Specialist certification. And Alan has been very, very involved with Retail Alliance with our loss prevention program. So Master Officer Alan McDowell with James City County Police Department, he's going to talk to us today and teach us what we need to do to prepare and respond to an active shooter situation. So, Alan, thank you for being here.
All right. Thank you, Beth. I'm going to go ahead and do my screen sharing here. And while I'm doing that, just let everybody know that, let me get this thing, there we go. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes.
All right. So what I would like to ask everybody, and first of all, thank you very much for having me. I greatly appreciate it, and I greatly appreciate y'all taking your time out for this topic. If you have any questions while I'm going through this, because I've got a lot of information that I'm condensing down to this time period to be able to provide for you. If you have any questions, if you would just put them in the chat, and then what will happen is Beth will bring up the questions, as you have them in. That way I don't have a whole bunch of people coming in at one time. So if you have any questions, just put them in the chat box, and then Beth will bring them up to me. All right. So a little more background on me. I obviously was with the department when Columbine occurred, and I was a S.W.A.T instructor back then. And so basically, we had to start educating ourselves a lot on active shooting environments, and what it ended up becoming was they called them active environments, because if we say active shooter, everybody knows what we're talking about. But if you look at the history of these types of events, they have occurred with firearms, but they've also occurred with things like explosives, gases, edged weapons, just about anything you can think of. So don't be surprised if when you look up information on this, you see them as active shooter environments or active threats or active environments, those kind of things. But myself and a couple other officers were actually responsible for training our police officers on how to respond to these, as well as start doing training for the public. So we've done a lot of that with businesses and organizations around the county, as well as the law enforcement people on how to mitigate these types of situations. So first of all, the big question. Can you hear me? There you go. All right. So the big question is, why are we here? Why are we talking about this? Well, I mean, the unfortunate reality is this kind of thing happens in the world today. It's something that we can't or shouldn't ignore. We certainly, don't want these kind of things to happen. But we want to make sure that, we plan for it, and that we're able to, keep ourselves safe and our families safe and our friends safe and our coworkers safe from these types of situations. So what we're going to look at in this is we're going to look at some of the potential indicators of violence, some of the effects of stress, and you'll hear me talk about this a little bit, about stress reactions and things we go through when we're scared. look at some defensive weapon type things we can talk about, and then the run, hide, fight techniques. All right. Because ultimately that's what this is. When I go through this, and you might see different terminology, it really is based off of the run, hide, fight theory. All right. So, of course, the goal of this course is to keep you and your loved ones and your family and friends and your coworkers alive. So, first of all, let's talk about training or planning. Okay. So this is, this can be both planning and your training. What does that mean? Okay. Why should you even take the time? I mean, rather than, and I'm talking about more than just sitting in an office and going, okay, well, yeah, I could go out the front door, the side door. That's good. All right. So check the box off. I'm good. Why should you go through a little more detailed planning? Practice it once in a while and that kind of stuff. Well, here's why. When you look at stress responses in human beings, okay, how we react under great stress, you'll notice that when we have, if you see this chart that I've got up, when we talk about the startle and fear, all right, with an untrained response, all right, there's panic, disbelief, denial, and helplessness. All right, so think about it like this. When you don't plan for something, or you don't have a life experience in a particular area, and that event occurs and it's scary to you, sometimes we stall. We don't know what to do. All right. So we kind of have that little panicky type thing because we haven't planned. Because when something happens that scares you, for instance, the easiest thing to think about is, okay, I'm getting ready to walk across the street. I don't see the car coming. The car comes up, slams on the brakes. Okay. Well, if that's happened to you, or your parents educated, in your younger life, or your parents educated you on, hey, if a car comes up, it's dangerous, it can hurt you, potentially kill you, you'll want to make sure you avoid that. Well, if that's happened to you before, then when you're walking out the street and the car comes along and it hits the brakes, and you take a moment, you look over and you see the car, your brain automatically starts searching for, what did I do the last time that this happened to me? Or when I was educated about it, what happened? And whatever it was that you were trained to do, or whatever it was you were educated to do, or whatever you did the last time you had that type of scenario, that's what you're going to do. Okay. So that's why we always say, you hear practice makes perfect. Well, good practice makes good. Bad practice is bad. All right. So whenever you're in a stressful situation, or you're in a high stress situation where, a lot of fear is involved, you're going to do whatever you did the last time. Okay. So put good stuff into that basket. All right. You want to make sure that you're looking at things, you're looking at, your training and taking it seriously. So then there's, under panic, we got disbelief. Okay. Because if you don't train and you don't think about it, there is a higher chance that you could panic when this happens. All right. So practice, and there's no panic. No practice, there could be panic. Okay. So with disbelief, if you're sitting in an office and you hear bang, 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 okay, and there's a roadway, or let's say one bang, and there's a roadway near your office, could that be a car backfiring? Sure. Okay. If you hear bang, 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 all right, could that be something else? Could it be maybe a construction person dropped a bunch of stuff? Could it be gunfire? Okay. What else is there? Do you see other things? Do you see, people running? Do you hear things other than that? All right. Sometimes people fall into disbelief because, okay, that can't happen here. They have a thought process of, that can't happen here. I'm in my office. That kind of stuff just doesn't happen here. All right. And when they have that, and you might hear something or see things that normally would indicate to you there's some type of problem, sometimes there's disbelief. Okay. And I will use a home example from James City County. Okay. We actually had a shooting at one of our, at the Farm Fresh in our jurisdiction a few years ago. Okay. And basically what it was is a mentally disturbed guy comes in and ends up approaching a stranger and shot and killed him right on one of the grocery aisles. Okay. People escaped, people got out, but now what happened was after this man shot our victim, he knelt down next to the body and put the gun next to him. Okay. A worker in the store approached the guy and asked him, "Did you just fire a gun off in here?" Now I want you to picture that for a second. You have a man kneeling down next to a body with a gun next to him and blood and that kind of stuff. That's not necessarily the time to approach somebody and ask him something like that, but that could very well have been disbelief. All right, because, hey, that kind of stuff doesn't happen here. I can't really be, seeing what I'm seeing. Now, once the worker realized, kind of what he was looking at, he got out of there real quick. All right. And then denial is simply, that kind of stuff doesn't happen here. And then you could feel helplessness, where if you actually take time, create a plan. All right. And then practice that plan once in a while. One, would you be anxious? Yes. I can tell you we're all anxious. I can tell you as a police officer for 30 years, I get into situations still that, I'm anxious about it. Sure. That's just natural in your body. Okay. But, planning, we know how to take care of the situation. But in a trained response, you'll be anxious, but you'll recall what your training was, or you will recall what your plan was. You're better prepared, and then you'll commit to your actions. All right. So in short, sitting down and coming up with a plan and then practicing it once in a while, that is where the rubber meets the road. Okay. One, you're more likely to do that, in the event of a real situation. Plus, the other thing is when you train, if you write down your plan and then you practice it, you may very well find out that things that you thought were going to work don't work. Okay. Another example I give people to drive this home is every year we have fire drills in schools. When's the last time you ever heard of a school burning down? Now, there have been fires here and there, but they're very rare. And if you think about the reason for that, is the reason for the fire drills is one, it's a big safety thing to make sure that the children are safe. But we also train the children so that if a child is in the bathroom and a teacher's not around and they hear that alarm, they know, hey, I'm supposed to go out to the door to the left, go out to the middle of the ball field, and that's where I'm going to be safe. So they will automatically do it in stressful situations. All right. So training is a key. So when we look at the definition of an active environment, active shooter, what really is it? Well, it's not a single homicide. So the Farm Fresh shooting that I was telling you about, that was actually it could have ended up becoming an active shooter situation, but it was actually a single homicide. All right. So with these type of situations that we're talking about today, their goal is mass murder. Okay. So it's not it's an active event. It's actively going on. They are not stopping. Okay. Now, keep in mind that it can start out as the intent is a single homicide and then become an active shooter situation. I mean, it could be one of those situations where you have, let's say someone who's going through a nasty divorce. They're upset at their at their getting ready to be former spouse. So they decide, hey, I'm going to go to their workplace. I'm going to end this. Okay. And then when they're there, they figure, okay, well, I'm going to get in trouble or I'm going to, possibly commit suicide anyway. I didn't like that secretary. I didn't like that coworker. and it could very easily turn into an active shooter situation than a single homicide situation. So sometimes it can be planned out to be a mass murder active event. Sometimes it can go from a single event into that type of thing. All right. So when we look at where these occur, I think that you all know that these things occur everywhere. Okay, they can occur anywhere and everywhere. These events have been perpetrated by, young, old, every race, color, creed, sexual orientation. That's why when we look at these types of situations, there is no cookie cutter profile to say, okay, well, if you're going to have an active shooter, it's going to be this type of person of this particular age, of this particular background. Now, there are things that we can look for, some indicator type things. We're going to talk about those in a couple of minutes. But as far as a cookie cutter, hey, everybody, this is what look for. If you see one of these, this is what that's going to be. Okay. No, so do know that they can happen anywhere at any time by anyone. All right. There is no profile. All right. But planning and awareness is the key. All right. So are they more frequent? We think yes. We see them particularly, from time to time here in the U.S. They seem to be more frequent. Now, could that be because of media putting it out? Because one of the things that we're trained in law enforcement is, you'll notice that when we talk about active events like this, we don't necessarily, unless we have to, we don't necessarily name the actors in these, okay? The ones who perpetrated the crimes, because we don't want to give them publicity, all right? Because some of these people, for instance, are guys that did Columbine, they were actually boasting about all the publicity and how famous they would get. So that was one of the things that they were wanting, okay? So does the media make them more, put this out more so people look at it as, hey, I might become famous if I do that? That could be a reason. But when we look at why these people do this kind of stuff, a lot of times it's anger, revenge, some type of ideology, untreated mental illness. Now, when we say untreated mental illness, let's think about it this way. This type of event is not something that someone, is going to just go out and do. Okay. Your average person just isn't going to go out and do this kind of thing. All right. Now, does that mean that every person that does one of these kinds of crimes is, what we call quote unquote crazy or suffering from mental illness? No. A lot of them can be. Okay. However, think about it this way. Are they all definitely mentally or emotionally disturbed? Okay. Emotionally disturbed. All right. Yes, they are. Now think about it this way. What is emotionally disturbed? All right. Because every single one of us have been emotionally disturbed before. All right. So emotionally disturbed is you were on your way to work this morning and that person in that car cut you off and almost ran you off the road and took the front of your car off. All right. You got mad. You might have waved at him with less than 5 fingers. Okay. But so for that moment, you were emotionally disturbed. You were not in your normal emotional state. If you're normally happy, you're normally kind of copacetic going to work, maybe having your coffee, you're feeling all right, playing on your day. Now, suddenly you get angry real quick. All right. Your emotions get changed because of some event that occurred. All right. But think about how we as human beings normally deal with that. All right. So if you have an event like I mentioned with the car and you get a little emotionally disturbed, what happens? You go to work, you tell your coworkers, hey, I was driving down the interstate and this guy came over and cut me off, and you get it out. You talk it out, you get it out. It probably bothers you for a little bit, but you get over it. Okay. You go on with your day. if it was something that really scared you, it might last a couple of days with you, but you talk it out, you get it out, and it's over and it's done, and you move on with things. All right. People that have a tendency to do these types of actions, it's one of those things that life events happen to them and they feel that they cannot get over it. And over time, over a period of time, these things build and build and build and build and build to the point to where they truly feel that the only way they can get any kind of relief is by an act of physical violence, okay? To be able to, get rid of the feelings and stuff that they're having, all right? So they can suffer from mental illness. Some of it can just be ideology or revenge. But think about it this way. They generally are emotionally disturbed when this happens. They just feel that they can't get over this and they have to find an outlet, all right? Something to create some physical harm to others to be able to get rid of the feelings that they're having, all right? So these situations are unpredictable, all right, although you can see some signs, all right? And when I say see signs, one of the things that we want to look out for are differences in the way people act, okay? And think about it this way. If you think about situations that you've seen on the news of, be it, any of these types of events that have occurred, any type of active events, active shooter events, whatever. If you ever notice a few days after the event, the news will start having these people pop up and they say, oh yeah, I knew that guy and he had something wrong with him and he was acting this way and we kind of thought something was going to happen. You get those kind of things start popping out. Well, the key is when you see something, say something. It's the same thing as the government tells you about terrorism, all right? If you see something, say something, okay? Don't wait for something to happen, then say something, all right? So for a business, how does that work? Well, that doesn't mean that, hey, if, we all have bad days. So if I'm working with someone and suddenly they come in and they're depressed or they're feeling down or they're a little angry about something. Okay, we all go through that. But if it's lasting, a long time and you start hearing them saying threatening things or they're just not acting right, maybe take that moment to, hey, can I help you? Is there something we can work through? Or mention it to a supervisor or mention it to somebody else, okay? But you do want to, look at that kind of stuff. Again, there's some common sense in there. Think about, does this seem normal? Everybody goes through bad times. But if it's something that goes on and on and on and starts to get worse in the severity of the way they're acting, try to get them some help. That's the biggest thing. Try to get them some help, someone to intervene so that, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go this way, but, you want to make sure that you get them some help, okay? When we look at active threat or active shooter situations, they do evolve quickly. Once they start, they evolve quickly, and they continue until stopped by law enforcement, suicide, or other interventions. Okay. Now, when I say other interventions, here, as of the past few years, citizens have actually gotten involved in stopping the people from doing these things. Okay, as far as attacking the attackers to get them to stop. Okay. One, you need to look out for your safety and that kind of thing first. All right. But they generally continue until stopped by law enforcement, suicide, and other interventions. Now, one thing I do want to mention about this is think about it this way. If you have someone who's going to come into a business and, let's say it's a revenge thing or whatever their reasoning is for it. And they're going to come in and, I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm having a problem with my wife. We're getting ready to get divorced. I've decided, okay, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to get her when she's at work. Okay. And I go in there. All right. Although these people may be emotionally disturbed, they still understand the concept of once they start doing whatever they're going to do, the clock is ticking. Okay. And what that means is as soon as somebody sees them with a weapon or they start doing something, someone is going to call the police. That might be somebody in the business, that might be a passerby, but somebody's going to call the police. So the bad guy, okay, knows that once they get started, it's only a matter of moments until law enforcement gets there. And everybody nowadays knows that law enforcement's number one goal is to stop the threat immediately. Okay. So if I'm a bad guy and I'm going to go into a business to get my estranged wife or whoever, I know that as soon as I get in there, I need to do what I'm going to do as quickly as I can, because the police are going to be coming and they're going to attempt to stop me as quick as I can, okay, or as quickly as they can. So remember, keep that in the back of your head that they have a time clock, okay? It's not something that's going to go on and on and on forever, all right? That's why they generally evolve and go very quickly, all right, because they know that they need to get done what they need to get done before stopped, and generally law enforcement is going to stop them. Now, that's even if someone comes in and says, hey, I'm going to go into here and hurt as many people as I can. Well, they're going to try to hurt as many as they can before law enforcement gets there. So when I do this presentation in person, typically what I do is I take a moment and say, okay, look around, see what you see in your office, see what ways you have that you can get out. But the other thing is also take a look at, if I had to barricade myself in a room, how would I barricade myself in here? The other thing is look at what weapons do I have? So what kind of weapons might you have at your disposal? It could be a stapler. It could be an ink pen. It could be a fire extinguisher. It could be, a clock on the wall. It could be, if you have a hard mug or something like that. Now people think, well, how could a cup or a mug be a weapon? Well, if it's hard, you can definitely hit somebody with it. But the other thing is it could be a distraction. All right. Something that I could throw at them to distract them while I do something else. All right. So what kind of weapons do I have at my disposal? What kind of things do I have here that I could use? All right. So that's a good thing to think about. All right. So here we get to the run, hide, fight. We get to the nuts and bolts of it. So evacuate, hide out, or take action, or run, hide, fight, whichever way you want to talk about it. Okay. Now, why do we still use this theory, run, hide, fight, or evade, evacuate, hide out, take action? Okay. Because it's how we actually normally work as a human being. Think about it this way. If you walk out to your car and you're halfway through the parking lot, suddenly this Rottweiler comes out from behind a car and sees you and obviously wants to get you, okay, attack you. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to try to get away from it, okay, and you're going to run. Well, if you can't outrun the dog, what are you going to do? You're going to hide, or not necessarily hide. You might climb up on top of a car. You're going to try to get up a tree. You're going to try to get away from the dog, deny access to you from the dog, okay? But if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you've got nowhere you can run and nowhere that you can hide or deny access, you're probably going to fight, because the choice is either I'm going to let the dog attack me or I'm going to try to defend myself. And surprisingly, even people who may say, I don't know that I could fight. In the case of the dog starts biting you enough, you will end up doing something to defend yourself. I guarantee it. You would most definitely. So when we look at the first thing you want to do, number one, is get out of there. Okay. So getting away from there is key. So first thing you do is think about an escape plan. Think about it like when you're at home and you're creating your plan for if there's a fire in your house and you talk with your family and, hey, this is how we're going to get out if there's a fire. Look at it the same way. How am I going to get out? One, if you hear something, leave your belongings behind. If it's a threat, you don't need to carry your computer, your pocketbook, if you got your cell phone with you, great, get out. Okay. Help others escape if possible, but do not let somebody else's denial, okay, or feeling of denial gets you hurt. Okay. And what I mean by that is this. If I'm in a room or if I'm in an office with somebody and I hear bang, 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 and I look and I see people running down the hallway screaming, running from a particular direction, I'm going to be like, hey, I need to go. We need to get out of here. If I grab a coworker and go, hey, we need to get out of here, and they're like, no, 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 it's probably just a car backfiring. Okay, I've heard the noise. I've seen people running and they're screaming. FBI calls that a clue. Okay, something is going on. We need to get out of here. If the person is just no, 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 well, you have to make sure that you're safe. Okay. Leave the area regardless of others. Warn or prevent individuals from entering if at all possible. When you leave, it's not, I'm going to leave and just go right outside the parking lot. I'm going to get as far away from that structure or where that event is occurring as I can. Okay. Get to safety. If it's safe for me to, on my way out, tell people you need to get out of here, come on, go, then do so. All right. But you want to make sure that you're safe and warn people as you can. All right. So in getting out, now, one thing I will tell you right now, because I know some businesses who are joining us may be thinking this. All right. Again, I've got a lot of information I'm putting into this packet to give you today. Utilize your local law enforcement agencies. Okay. Because in doing these presentations, I have had businesses say, okay, well, what if I have people that are mobility impaired? Okay. Wheelchairs, maybe have walkers, canes, that kind of stuff. How do we make plans? How do we help to get them out? There are ways to do that. All right. And the best thing to do is get your local law enforcement people, your crime prevention people from those jurisdictions where you are to come in and help you create your plans to be able to do that. Okay. So when you're hiding out, your hiding spot should be out of the person's view. Okay. Provide protection. All right. If shots are fired, and not restrict your options for movement. Okay. Think about it like this. When we look at security, okay, I like to use the description. If you've seen Shrek, the original Shrek movie, and he's talking to Donkey about people, and he says people are like onions; they have layers in them. Okay, they have layers to them. Security is the same way. All right, when we look at security, security is in layers. Okay, if I have a building and I've got good fencing, that's one layer, but that by itself is not going to do it. Okay, if I have fencing, that's a layer. If I have good communication within my infrastructure, that's another layer. If I have cameras, that's another layer. If I have good locks on my doors, that's another layer. The more layers that you have, and they don't have to be complicated layers, but the more layers that you have, the more secure it's going to be. Okay. So when thinking about it in relation to hiding out, okay, you're going to hide out only if you can't get out. Okay. If I can't get out, then I'm going to hide. Okay. In that, I want to make myself anonymous. All right. I want to make it as though I'm not there. All right. So I'm going to go into a room that I can secure the door. And even if the door has a good lock on it, I'm still going to barricade the door. Okay. And I'm going to be very quiet in there. And I'm going to shut my cell phone off or shut my ringer off. And I'm going to be as quiet as I can, turn the lights out and all those kind of things. Because remember what I said a few minutes ago, if the bad guy's in there, they know that the police are coming. So they have to do, what they're going to do as quickly as they can do it. So think about it this way. Going back to the scenario, I come there to, go after my wife or my lover or whoever. Okay. If I come in there and I know the police are coming, I'm probably going to go to the place that I know that she frequents. Well, if she's not there, that's when I'm going to go around and start pulling on doors. Okay. If it's the scenario where I'm coming there just to harm as many people as I can, I'm going to go to where I know people are. If people are not in that main area, I'm going to start going to various rooms, pulling on doors. Now, think about this. If I'm the bad guy and I go to doors and the doors are locked, am I going to spend a lot of time breaking down every single locked door that I do not know if anybody's in there or not? Probably not. Why? Because how long does it take to break down a door? It takes a couple of minutes. Okay. Even your doors that aren't solid core doors, it's not generally one kick and you're in. You got to kick on it a few times to get it open. So how many of those would I go through before law enforcement shows up and stops me? Now, my goal is to either hurt as many people as I can or get that one person that I'm there for. That's why, you generally will see, we've had reports where they'll go and they'll pull on doors and they generally don't go in there unless they hear something that draws them in there. Like if I'm a bad guy and I come up to a door and I'm yanking on it and I don't hear anything, and I might even throw threats out. Hey, I know that you're in there. I'm going to come get you, blah, blah, blah. If I don't hear anything, nobody's probably in there. Now, if I'm making threats and I hear, or whimpering or something like that, well, I know somebody's in there. All right. Now, the exception to that is if I'm there to get a specific person and I'm at their office and I know that they normally stay in their office, they might spend a little more time trying to get into that area. Okay. Because what they're after could very well be in there. All right. So keep in mind that anonymity, all right, being quiet, having the lights out and those kind of things and staying away from the doors. Okay. So any doors that you barricade, stay away from them. All right. Stay away from the windows. All right. Could very well, be something that could save your life. Now think about this as well. All right. If you're in a big facility and, it's going to take a lot of effort to get outside and people say, well, or maybe the bad guy was in between you and, a very few exits that you have. Because when you make your plan, it's like a fire drill. You want to plan for more than one exit. When you look at if they're in an area in between you and where your exit is and you have to hide, preferably hide somewhere where you have a secondary exit. Okay. Remember, you're denying access to you. So if I come into an office and it's got a window and I can barricade the window or barricade the door to make it harder for them to get to me. And then after I barricade the door, break the window and go out the window, that's going to be fine too. Because remember, my main goal is to get away from where this is happening. If I can't get away from there, then I'm going to hide. Okay. Now that hiding could be that's where I've got to be until this thing's over, or it could be that I go into a room, barricade the door to deny access to me while I get out of there. Okay, a secondary way. All right. Keeping yourself safe, like I said, lock the doors, hide behind large items, barricade the door. Again, cell phones on buzz or that type of thing. Remain quiet. The other thing that I want to put in here is breathe. Okay, because if you've ever had a panic attack or you've ever gotten so scared that you feel panicky, here's what happens. When people get into a very, very heightened state of fear, a lot of times, and you start feeling that panicky feeling, a lot of times what has happened is you are actually shallow breathing because you are so scared that you're starting to shallow breathe and you don't realize that that's actually what you're doing. Okay. So in that, all right, when you start to feel that panicky kind of feeling, all right, start taking some deep breaths through your nose, out through your mouth, very controlled. You can call it box breathing. All right. Military, they call it combat breathing. All right. Slowly breathe in through your nose, hold it for a moment, breathe out through your mouth. Now, don't hold your breath for a long time, but in through your nose for a count of 3, out through your mouth through a count of 3. or 4. Okay. So in through your nose for 3, out through your mouth for 4. All right. And what you're doing is you're regulating your breathing, because when you shallow breathe, it starts to mess with all the chemicals in your body, and that intenses that feeling of fear. Okay. So when you start regulating your breathing, it's going to relax you more. When I was on our SWAT team, I used to teach our tactical guys this stuff, and I have actually used this myself several times. And yes, are you still going to be scared? Sure. But are you going to feel panicky? No, you'll calm right down. So don't forget to breathe. All right. If you're able to call 911, call 911. Now, keep in mind that they're going to ask you a bunch of questions, probably a bunch of questions you're not going to have answers to, and that's okay. All right. When you call 911, talk to them about, what you know. All right. If you know the location, the numbers of people that are there, the bad guys, that's fine. Tell them, or the approximate location. If you know the physical descriptors of the people, or the types of weapons, or how many weapons, or what kind of weapons there are, let them know that as well. The dispatcher will probably keep you on the phone until law enforcement gets there. All right. So, but just give them what information you can. And again, remember to breathe. All right. Keep yourself as calm as possible. Fighting or taking action, last resort. Okay. Think about it this way. In most cases, that's going to be the last resort. If you don't want to play hero and the person's way away from you, you go running towards them trying to stop them. You want to get out there as quickly as possible. But if you are going to take action, act as aggressively as possible. Use whatever kind of improvised weapons or things you can throw. Yell. Now, let's go back for a second. Remember how I talked about when you get scared and you shallow breathe? Okay. This is one of the benefits of yelling in these types of situations. And this could be anything. If you're walking out to your car and somebody comes up and tries to attack you and you yell, okay, not screaming, but yelling, okay, get away from me, drop your weapon, whatever, okay? The benefit of yelling is it forces you to breathe, okay? So yelling actually forces you to breathe, okay? But if you're going to fight, you need to commit to your actions. All right. So here's the way it should go. 1, if something happens, get out of the area as quickly as you can. 2, if you can't get out or you need some time to be able to get out, hide, barricade yourself in somewhere. If you have a secondary way you can get out, go ahead and take that. The other thing is, if you're in a situation where you're barricaded in a room, you need to kind of think about, well, what am I going to do if they actually come in here? Am I going to fight? What am I going to do? How am I going to do that? Okay. But remember, if you're going to fight, commit to your actions. The only exception I can see to the fighting thing is being a first response rather than a last response is if I'm standing right next to the person, they pull a firearm out or pull some type of weapon out, I have to make a personal choice of what I'm going to do, because this is all these are personal choices. Okay. Is it better for me to try to run from them? And what are the chances of me getting hurt? Or is it better for me to try to, do something right now? Okay. If I'm going to get hurt either way, what are my better chances of trying to stop this person? Okay. So that's a personal decision, something you need to think about. Okay.
Alan?
Yes, ma'am.
Alan?
Yes, ma'am.
Someone wrote a note that says, once you try to distract the shooter with throwing something at him, will he not try to turn to you and shoot you instead?
Okay.
So if you're throwing stuff at them, okay, would they not?
That's a very good question. So think about it like this. 1, if I'm trying to get away from them and I have to throw something at them to get away from them, if their attention now, let's think about it this way. If their attention is on me and I think that they're going to attempt to hurt me and I need to do something to distract them so I can get away, think about it that way. The other thing is, if I'm barricading myself in a room, okay, and I come up with a plan of, okay, I need to do something to distract them and then hit them. That's the kind of thing we're thinking about. Or better yet, let's say Beth and I are in a room. Okay, we hide and we're in a room together. Okay. And, I say, okay, let's do this. All right. Beth, you take this you take this cup, you take this phone, you take this pitcher, whatever, and I'm going to be on one side of the door, you're on the other. If they come in, you throw this at their face as hard as you can, and at the same time you throw that at their face, I'm going to attack them, or I'm going to hit them, or I'm going to use this other device to strike them with. Okay. And again, that's a personal decision. It's situationally based. Okay. You have to think of, is that going to be the best thing to do? Is it going to be useful? True. If I am in a situation and the bad guy or the shooter is not paying attention to me and they're paying attention to somebody else, yeah, I'm not going to draw their attention. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get out. But if their attention is on me and I need to do something to distract them, yeah, that's the time to do that kind of stuff. All right.
Or maybe if you, like outside my door is a fire extinguisher.
Right.
And maybe if I have to hide in my office with one and just unleash it on them, not maybe throw it at them, but shoot it at them.
Well, the other thing to think about is true, but to maybe do both. Okay. If I shoot the stuff in their face and they seem somewhat disoriented, I'm going to start hitting them with that fire extinguisher. Okay. Because remember, their goal, the bad guy's goal, was to take life. Okay. So when you're trying to escape or you're trying to, get away from them, you're trying to hurt them. I mean, in all honesty, I'm trying to put you down or hurt you because I don't want you hurting me or anybody else. Okay. But yeah, take that fire extinguisher in your office. I would barricade yourself in there. And, if they come in, then go ahead and do that. Absolutely. Now, look at the law enforcement's role. Remember that when we come in there, law enforcement's number one goal is not to treat wounded. It's to go after the shooter themselves. Okay. Now, the theory behind this is this. Okay. If I come into an active situation, remember it's active, it's ongoing. If I come into an active situation, for every one person that I stop to help, 2 or 3 more people are getting injured. So the better good, okay, or the greater good is to go in as fast as I can, stop the harm from occurring, so that one, I can start, rendering first aid and EMS can come in. Because I can tell you that ambulances and EMS, they are not going to come in until law enforcement have said everything, the threat's been subdued or the threat's been neutralized. Okay. They're not going to come in because they're not trained for that. So as soon as law enforcement says, hey, I've neutralized the threat or I've stopped the threat, they've given up, then we can start doing the EMS stuff. Again, when we come in, we're moving very fast and we're stopping the threat as quickly as we can. Okay. And law enforcement officers nowadays, most law enforcement agencies and all of them that I know of on the peninsula, we're all training in your TCCC, which is your Tactical Combat Casualty Care. All right. So we're learning, just like soldiers are, how to stop arterial bleeds, how to do this kind of stuff. For businesses, I will throw this out there. There's a course called Stop the Bleed. Okay. Stop the Bleed is a course that a lot of your EMS law enforcement places may teach. Okay. We teach it here. We don't charge anything for it. Okay. And basically what it's for is how to control bleeding. Okay. And the good thing is it came out of this type of thing. However, you could use it for all kinds of stuff. You're cutting a tree down in your backyard and you hurt yourself. You fall on something and it sticks you somewhere that you're bleeding a lot. How to control bleeding, how to stop that kind of stuff. Okay. How to use tourniquets and other devices such as that. Okay. How to make makeshift tourniquets and all that. Okay. So Stop the Bleed is the name of the course. If you can't find any places that do it, Beth, let me know. Contact Beth. She can get with me and I can put you in touch with somebody or get you what you need. All right. So we're going to wear bulletproof vests, have different types of weapons, shout commands. We might push people. Keep in mind that when we do that kind of stuff, it's a very high charge situation. We're not trying to be rude to you. We're trying to get you safely out of there. So if law enforcement comes in and you're running out and you stop to say, hey, it's a white guy, he's 6 foot, he's wearing a black hat, he's down there, and we just say, thanks, grab you and push you out the door. It's not that we don't want to hear it from you, but we don't have time to tell you that, hey, you might be the 5th person that's told us that. Okay. Don't have time to stop and have a conversation. We just need to get you out as quickly as possible. If something like this happens and you interact with law enforcement, remember, we need to, just no quick movements, follow our instructions, show us your hands. And the reason that we say see your hands is because hands is what hurts people. And that's what we're always looking for to make sure, because when we go into a situation like this, we generally don't know, or rarely do we know, who the bad guy is. Okay. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to move you to a safe location that's generally somewhere that law enforcement question, try to find out as much about the shooter as we can. So again, kind of a recap, develop an emergency action plan. Sit down and look at where you are. Your place of work, your business is quote, hopefully it's not your home, but quote unquote, it's your home. You know the place better than I do. Okay. Look at, where could I exit from? What are multiple exits that I could go from? Okay. What would I do if this were to happen? Okay. Practice it. All right. Then recognize some potential indicators of potential violence. Now think about it this way. Could it be former employees or a customer or something like that? Sure. Okay. Could it be someone from outside the business? Sure. Okay. Think about it this way. We all know potential indicators of violence. All right. You've known them since you were a kid. Think about it this way. We communicate mostly through body language. What we say is a secondary part, but most of it is body language. That's how when you were a child and you're out on the playground and you see 2 boys or 2 people, 100 yards away, and they're getting ready to fight, you can tell they're getting ready to fight by their body posture and that kind of stuff. So think about it this way. If you're dealing with somebody and they start to, crunch their face up, glare, make fists, start to move their body positioning back and forth, make threatening comments, take that kind of stuff seriously. Now, does that mean that they're getting ready to do an active shooter or active threat type situation? Maybe, maybe not. But, take threatening actions seriously. Okay. Distance yourself away from them. If you see somebody coming in, and it's 100 degrees outside, they got a long trench coat in, they look like they got bulges, around their body, call the police. I can tell you that as a law enforcement officer, and I'm sure most of my brother and sister law enforcement officers probably feel the same way, I would much rather you call me when you think that I might be needed and then turn around and call me off than to not call me until it's too late. Okay, because many, many times people wait too long before they call police. Okay, because one, they don't think it's serious enough. I've actually had people say, well, we don't want to bother you if it's not serious. Okay, think about it this way. You're paying me for a service. Let me make my money. Okay. If you think that something's happening and you call and then it ends up that it was nothing, it's easier to call and say, hey, everything's good. We don't need you. Okay. But if you see things that appear to be threatening, if you're a place that you say, hey, we don't allow firearms in here, and someone walks in, they got a bulge under their coat and you think that they may have one, that's not a problem. Call law enforcement. Come up there, rather than you having to try to deal with that kind of stuff. All right. But look for signs of potential violent behavior, listen to what people are saying, take it seriously, and let somebody know, definitely. All right. That's just kind of a recap of what we had. And any kind of other questions we got, most definitely. I'm sorry, because that was a lot of information in a real short package. So,
That's always good to have. Any questions? Since we're over now, if you'd like to speak, you can unmute and ask any questions if you like.
Well,
Nothing?
I just want to leave people with this. In all seriousness, make good use of your local law enforcement agencies. When you're creating your plans, reach out to your local police department, sheriff's department, wherever you may be. And they have crime prevention officers. They have officers that are trained in this. And I can tell you that they probably aren't going to, sit down and create your policies or anything like that. But I can tell you that they probably will sit down and go over your facility with you and say, hey, here are some ideas. Here are some ways to keep your doors shut, because there are some other ways of securing your doors, windows, and all that kind of stuff. So they're free. Okay. Working with your law enforcement agencies are free. So definitely take advantage of that. Okay,
Alan, I have one.
Sure.
What would provide protection when hiding? I'm not sure. Are they talking about what would provide protection?
So when you're hiding, if you're hiding in a room, okay. First thing, I'm going to try to make it so the door won't open. So even though it may have a lock on it, I'm still going to push things in front of it, a desk, a bunch of chairs, a table, a file cabinet, whatever I can. What can provide protection, is anything that might be, thick, stop bullets, that kind of stuff. If someone's going around and I know that they've got a gun, okay, again, because it's situationally dependent. If they're going around and know that they've got a firearm because they've shot it off, okay, when I shut my door and I barricade it and I hide, even though I've got stuff blocking the door, I'm still going to want to be behind things that if they should shoot through a door, one, that's another reason why you don't want to be right in front of the door, be off to the side somewhere. I'm still going to want to be behind things that could potentially stop, whatever they're shooting at. Remember that velocities and everything, one, if they shoot through the door, it's going to, whatever they're shooting at, it's going to have less of an impact once it enters the room after going through a door. But I'm going to want to have something good and sturdy, maybe turn a desk over, be behind a bunch of things just to help keep me safe. Plus, it's going to hide me. Okay. Does that answer the question?
I have another one here.
Sure.
Do you have any examples of an all clear signal when the active event is over, or how do people know when they can come out?
Okay. Here's the thing. The way we train here, and I recommend this, is there is no all clear signal. Basically what happens the way we train is we tell businesses when law enforcement, when we come, okay, because I say this because there have been active shooter events where the shooter goes around and says, hey, all's clear. Or they get the leader of they're holding the head of the business hostage and they make them go around and say, yeah, it's okay, Mary, come on out. All right, we don't do that. What we do is this. We tell businesses, okay, law enforcement is going to clear, okay? Because what we're going to do is when we come in after we stop the threat, we are going to go door to door and we're going to go indoors, be it, once everything's good. If I can get a key to doors, that's fine. If I got to break in a door, whatever, I'm going to get in the room. But when we go in, because what we're doing is we are clearing the building. We're clearing the rooms, okay? So typically the way we're going to do is we're going to open the door, not rush right in, but we're going to open the door. We're going to announce ourselves, in our case, James City County Police Department, coming in, or James City County Police Department, let me see your hands, and then we're going to come in, okay? That's how we do it, all right? So, and that's kind of, I would suggest that method just because then there's no question about, okay, what should I do? If somebody calls all clear and I open the door and it's the shooter standing right there. All right. If you have to stay in and barricade yourself in, police are going to come in and find you. Okay.
Okay. I have another one. During a shooting situation, is it helpful to lay down flat on the floor when there is nowhere to hide?
No. And I say no because and if I'm hearing you correctly, you're probably talking about playing dead kind of thing. Or, now if you are barricading yourself in a room and you can lay down flat and you choose to do that, that's one thing. But if it's a situation where you're like, okay, I've got nowhere to hide, so I'm just going to lay down. Okay. It's been shown that nowadays, what these shooters are doing is they're going through, and people that are on the ground that they think that they've already shot, they shoot again just to make sure they're down. Okay, so playing dead is, I wouldn't use that as an option. Okay, continue to try to find a place to get out. Again, you have to make a personal choice about the fighting thing, but you need to think about that seriously. Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of that.
Okay. This reverts back to what you were just talking about, going door to door. How would we tell if they were impersonating a police officer? Okay.
Well, once we've stopped everything, again, we're going to open the door. Okay. And we're going to typically, now I know this is how we train. We're going to open the door and announce, hey, James City County Police Department, show me your hands, come out. Okay. Now, we're not just going to go rushing in. All right. And we're probably going to try to call people out first, but also remember, we're going to have bulletproof vests, protective gear. Chances are we're probably going to have some shields or some of those kind of things. And we're going to slowly go into the room to make sure that nobody's in there. All right. But we understand that because of these types of situations, we could have people that are so panicked or so scared that, yes, they're still going to be hiding, and that kind of thing. So we understand the reaction that we might run into. Okay.
I'm just wondering, and you said, y'all would break down the door. They might be kind of hard if someone's put some furniture in front of it.
Sure.
But if they're not sure, have you ever had anybody try to throw stuff at you? Before they realized who you were?
Well, luckily we haven't had these in here where we've
I'm just wondering,
But in my career, I've had people do things similar to that because they called the police and they were scared. They didn't realize when we show up, and it can be a little disconcerting to us, but it ends up okay in the long run. But yeah.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
So keep in mind, this is not new to law enforcement. We train to deal with these kind of things, but we also understand going into these situations a multitude of things. One, could I run into somebody who's just so scared that, not to take up a bunch of time, but let you know, okay, could I run into an area where I'm giving commands and the person doesn't speak English? They're deaf. Okay. Or they're so scared they're experiencing what we refer to as auditory exclusion, where you are so scared you can see my mouth moving, but you just can't hear what I'm saying. We understand all that kind of stuff, and we train to deal with those kind of things as well. So yeah, it's a multitude of stuff we do.
Yeah. I will say one time, and I know we got to go. What happens? Oh, here we go. Police officer, what happens if it turns into a hostage situation?
Okay. If it turns into a hostage situation, now, so when we're talking about that, one, I'll try to make this a quick answer. So if it's a hostage situation, it is no longer an active shooter. Okay. So basically what happens is it can be very fluid. It can go from being an active shooter to being a hostage situation. Okay. Or vice versa. So if it becomes a hostage situation, then what would probably happen is your law enforcement elements are going to basically secure that area where the hostage situation is. So we're going to contain it so that they cannot move outside the area where they are. So we're going to shorten that loop to where the bad guy and their hostage are now contained to an area. Once we've contained that area, we're then going to get EMS people in to get any injured that are in those surrounding areas out. Okay. because life is number one. We're going to get those people out. Hostage situations are situations that law enforcement, we take time with, because we don't want to force the person to hurt the person. Okay. We don't want to do anything that's going to force their hand or make the bad guy so scared that they do something that nobody wants to happen. Okay. But when hostage situations occur, things can slow down. Okay. Now, getting into other areas, I mean, if it's a hostage situation where a law enforcement officer comes in and, you think that, okay, I, as a law enforcement officer, am darn sure that they're going to harm that hostage right then and there, then I have to make a decision as a law enforcement officer what I need to do to stop that as quickly as possible. Okay. And again, it's a very fluid situation, but if we think about your hostage situation, like most people think, okay, bad guy sees the cops coming in, he grabs a hostage and he's holding the hostage. Okay. Think about this way. That's when the reason things can slow down in a hostage situation of that type of what we think of as a standard hostage situation is because why is the person taking the hostage in the first place? They don't want to get hurt. Okay. If they didn't care, they wouldn't take any hostages. Okay. So knowing that, that's when things can slow down. We can try to calm them down. We can try to work through a resolution where they give up the hostage and everything's good. Okay. But again, we have to look at all the outcomes of that. All right. Whether that answers your question or not.
Would it make sense to say that if you're placed into a hostage situation, that you should just go ahead and be compliant, not make eye contact with the individual, and not try to do anything to further escalate the situation unless they try to take you somewhere else? Correct.
Yeah. So if it's the situation, if you are talking from the aspect of the person being taken hostage, again, that's a personal decision. Okay. If there's any way that you can, get out, all right, get out. If there's anything that you can do to disable them, okay, fine. But if it's that situation where you are so afraid and they've gotten a hold of you, you can do what's called express compliance, which is where you can comply until you see an opportunity to do something that you can get away from them.
Okay, any other questions? I know when I was in banking, when we had robberies, one of our best, we used to call it the best case scenario, because we had before people would come in and there'd be off-duty security people and try to take the situation in the hand, and we ended up with gunfire.
Right.
But our favorite robbery was one that someone came in, left, and no one knew there had ever been a robbery.
Right.
And that way we just called the police and say, this is what we have. That way nobody ever knew, no one was hurt. So, it's just like you said, different things for different situations.
Right.
So,
and I'll tell you that I don't know if there may be a couple other jurisdictions that do this. I know that we here, we actually do bank training, and then we do bank robbery scenarios like what you're talking about. But what we have also started doing here is we do that with the active shooter stuff. We actually do a training with the business first, and then we will do an active shooter drill, usually about a week later, with the business so that they can put their plan into practice. Now, obviously, we tell them, we're not going to be trying to hurt you or anything like that. So when it comes to the run, hide, fight, don't do the fight part, because we're not going to be confronting you like that. But it does give you the opportunity to be able to, put your plan into practice, to actually see, again, where the rubber meets the road. Hey, we thought this would work, but you know what? In a real life situation, that's probably not going to work. So what do we need to think about next? So we actually do those. Other law enforcement agencies may. If we have any of my law enforcement brothers and sisters out there listening, if you don't, but you want to get into doing that, just email me or give me a call, and I'll talk to you about how we do ours and give you all the information on how we do ours. because we have a couple of different ways we've done it. We've done them with churches, businesses, all kinds of organizations like that. So.
Yeah, I will say one time you talked about the first part where people, if something happens, they get afraid and kind of freeze up. And you
Right.
wonder, why do they freeze up? Well, that happened to me. Someone tried to break in my home and I literally froze up and could hardly move.
Right.
And they didn't actually get in the house, but they tried.
Sure.
I was kind of glad it happened because I ran into another situation where I came home from work. And some of you women can probably take this to heart. There's a guy who in our neighborhood, he was a felon, just gotten out of prison. And what he was doing is that he finds women who are going into their homes. And what do women do when they first go into their home? Is they open up the door and they put their pocketbook by the front door usually, and they continue on in. Well, this is what he was doing. We didn't realize it in our neighborhood. And I walk out of one of the rooms and there's a man standing there. And I think from the first episode I had, I wasn't as scared. I got mad and I started yelling at him and told him to get out of my house. But this was in like 5 backyard. My husband was cutting the grass.
Yeah.
And so that's what this guy, so I got mad, called the police, and come to find out this is what he was doing. But he actually going, okay, lady, this is what I meant. So the first time I was very scared. The second time I was very, very mad. But I don't know if it was a good thing or not. But it was the fact that that's what this guy does. And come to find out, that's not an unknown practice. They follow women in sometimes. And this is what he didn't want any conflict. He just wanted to come in, get your wallet, and leave. So you never even knew he was in there.
Right.
So
and that's one of the
tip for you ladies.
Yeah, and that's one of the wonderful things about what I talked about training is that we've done some and with businesses, and we have people in the very beginning who are just extremely high strung on it and they're scared. But then after we do the training, they're like, okay, well, I'm glad I did that because I see. And then next time we do the training with the business, they're a lot more relaxed. And we, like I said, you're going to be afraid if something like this really happens. But the key is if you have been through something similar before, either through training or life experience, you are not as scared as you were the first time it happened because you've been through it before. So that experience actually helps calm you down. You're still going to be scared, but you can think a little more rationally and, okay, what do I need to do? Put things into motion. So.
Right. Okay.
Right.
I had some comments there to thank you very much for coming. Very useful information and helpful information. And yes, it is. So, Alan, I appreciate you. Appreciate
Thank you.
James City County letting you come and talk to us today. It was very, very nice and very informative. And we hadn't had one of these in several years. In fact, I think you gave it about 3 years ago.
I think so.
So it's always good to get refreshed and what to do. And we'll go around your office, look where you can hide, look what you can do. So good information, Alan. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And thank you all for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, we don't have a speaker yet for September, but it will be the 4th Tuesday, hopefully, or the 4th week of September. So I'll get back to all of you about who we may have as a speaker then. Okay? So let's see if there's anything else that just came above. Nope, just a lot of thank yous. So that's good, Alan.
Right.
Thank you very much.